with the exception of my mother, pretty much. So I was an only child. Grew up going to open houses with my parents. My mother happened to be looking for a home for 26 years before she found her home.
Oh, okay.
So we thankfully didn't drag a poor real estate agent
what
around.
happened to that realtor?
Well, my father was the agent.
Oh, okay.
So I grew up going to open houses every single weekend. So I kind of came by default. And, you know, when you're around it all the time, just you kind of come by it naturally. So when I finished college, I was kind of like, what am I going to do? And my parents were like, hello, you're going to be a real estate agent. I was like, oh, yeah, okay. So I did that, and I finished UK and then got in when I was 24 years old.
Okay. So how long did you work by yourself before? I know you joined forces with your husband, so.
He's been with me about 4 years now, so 23 years, I guess I was on my own.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
So what encouraged you to get into business with him, or what made him decide to get licensed?
Well, his mother was a real estate agent too. So he and his father was a PBA. So he kind of grew up around real estate as well. And of course, being married to me for at the time over 20 years, he'd been around it all his our married life, and he wanted to kind of start slowing down with his retail business, and it just seemed like the perfect fit. And he's like, well, why don't I join you? I mean, I can make you smarter. His goal is to make me work smarter and just, he's kind of more behind the scenes. He does help me with showings and stuff, but he never writes offer to purchase, or he rarely attends a closing just because he's busy. I've got him busy putting signs in the ground or showing property. I call him my sign guy.
Yeah, that's a good hand to have for sure. So what kind of processes do you use to get leads, find clients, that sort of thing?
So I think I'm probably a little bit different than a lot of the Keller agents, but that doesn't mean that I'm right and they're wrong. Sure. It just means we're just different. So I work my database primarily. I do not do cold calls. Tried that one time years and years ago and I hated it. I do not call for sale by owners unless a client says, hey, will you call this for sale by owner? And see, I just don't. But I mean, there's tons of agents that do that and they do very well. It's just not my thing. So I work my database and previous clients primarily, maybe 70% of my business, maybe 80% of my business comes from previous clients. So in the beginning, when I was building my business, it was a whole world different. We didn't even have the internet.
Right.
We had MLS books.
Uh-huh.
We didn't have cell phones. You had to run home and check your answer machine. You didn't even have Supra. You had to go to the offices of the agent. So when I was building my business in the first 10 years, I was doing open houses. I was doing phone duty, which you don't even have now. I was doing a lot of print ads because we didn't have the internet. I don't do any print ads now. So it's just a world different. But I think in the beginning, that's really what built my whole cornerstone of my business was what I did early on.
So that was the foundational blocks.
The foundational blocks were, doing open houses, passing out my card to strangers, having my magnets, like Myrna said, having magnets on my car, just visibility.
So Myrna had mentioned earlier that when Whitney first got started, she was, I guess you had magnets on your car. Were you one of the first to do that?
I think so. Maybe first and only at the time.
Didn't you drive a bug?
I drove, and I had some really interesting cars. I had a little PT Cruiser at the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's right.
I had a Hummer. I mean,
That's so funny.
I just weird. I don't know. I just like those weird
Those
cars.
were really trendy at certain points.
Yeah,
so, that
so
makes sense.
and I had a Tesla before anybody had a Tesla.
Yeah.
So just things like that were just kind of made me a little more visible than maybe just other agents.
So do you tend to work more with sellers or with buyers?
It's funny. For years and years and years and years and years, it was always 50-50. Like literally, if I sold 50 homes, 25 were buy, 25. But in the last year and a half, it's primarily sellers now, but really not my doing. It just happened that way. I guess because there's previous clients and I'll do postcards whenever I sell a home. I'll send postcards out to that street that I just sold this home. But I mean, they're hard to come by now. I mean,
Right.
I'm in the same boat as all the rest of us. We all want listings, but they're so very hard to come by. So I would just say most of the listings I have or have had in the past 6 months have probably been previous clients.
So how long had you been in the business, and like what sales volume or units did you make your first hire? Or you said you have an administrative assistant.
How much business was I doing when I hired Stephanie? I typically do 20 to 25 million a year. So I guess it's hard to say because she worked for me at another company, and then she left that company when I left the company, and she came with me. So I would definitely suggest having an admin because I couldn't imagine doing it without her. She does not interact with my clients. She does not come into the office. She is totally a virtual assistant.
Okay.
She just does all my data entry, and but she does not interact with my clients.
So I just want to verify. So you said she came with you from your other company. Was that more of like a dependent sort of model where they input your listings for you and they handle the paperwork sort of thing?
Yes,
So that was her role in the previous brokerage.
And she was not I was not her only agent. So she split her time amongst, I don't know how many, 20 other agents. And then when I came to Keller Williams, I realized that, you know, we did have people that could do that for us, but I needed her on my own. And I felt like I could grow my business if I just had her dedicated, you know, to myself. At the time it was myself, now it's written on myself.
So did you see a growth in your business when you started working with her?
Yes, I did. Yeah. I saw growth in my business after I came to Keller. Yeah.
So what year did you join Keller Williams?
5 years ago. I think it's been 5 years ago. I don't really keep up with all those numbers. Again, I'm not like everybody else.
No, it's okay.
People will say, well, how much have you done right now? How many units? I'm like, I don't know. I really don't. Like, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not Michael. I know you're like that, and that's great. But I just sell. Like people, and even I go to listing appointments, like, well, how many have you sold? I'm like, I don't know. I just sell.
Okay.
Wherever I end up, I end up.
So my next question was going to be, how do you set your goals? But
don't set them.
No.
No.
Would you say that your goal is just to deliver good service?
Good service, and it's kind of like and Rick was saying this today. I was like, what am I going to say? Because I don't do the systems. I don't do all that. He's like, you have your own system. He's like, your own ecosystem. You know what you're doing. And I do. I know what I'm doing. And I know how hard I have to work. And I do work, like, I think that one of the questions is like, how do you set, I travel a lot.
Right.
But I don't turn my phone off ever. And I think Michael and I talked about that. He's like, wow, how do you do it? I'm like, because I'm always accessible. And as a real estate agent, when people talk to me like, oh, I want to just work weekends and nights, I'm like, you're not going to do well in this business.
Well, so I think that's interesting too, because would you say that, since you said you travel a lot, which I think anybody who follows you on social media would also probably know that you've done a lot of cool things. Do you think that being listing heavy helps you travel more?
Yes, it does. Because when I'm out of town, I do have a couple agents that help me show property, but I'm always involved with that. Like if they do make an offer, I'm usually the one writing the offer on the beach or wherever we are, on a boat. I've got my computer, I've got my phone, and my phone is literally with me all the time. And I use those systems like, .loop or DocuSign or whatever. I utilize those systems. So I'm pretty much accessible in any part of the world where I am.
So how do you show appreciation to your clients?
Well, I think I don't do a lot of client appreciation parties. I haven't done that in years, and I'm in forums all the time. They're like, what am I going to get as a closing gift? I'm like, your service is your gift. I don't get a gift from my doctor or my attorney. Again, it doesn't make it right or wrong. It's just not my style. I don't give closing gifts.
Okay.
My service is my gift, and my accessibility is my gift. I hear all the time when I'm meeting with sellers or people that have had their home listed with other agents, sometimes they just say, you never heard from our agent. I'm like, you're not going to get that from me. You're going to get accessibility.
Okay. So do you send out anything do you do like mailers?
Oh, yeah, I do mailers. Like I said, when I sell a home, I'll send out a mailer. When I list a home or when Rick and I list a home, we'll do new listing postcards to our database. So I do have a database, and I do keep in touch with that database. I try to call from time to time as best I can. So but I don't, call 5 clients a day and all that. I don't do that. I just, when I think of somebody, or I might see them, like, oh my gosh, how are you doing? I haven't seen you forever. So I do keep in touch with my previous clients.
So how much of a role does social media play in your business?
A lot.
Okay, so let's talk about your social media presence, because I think that you might have one of the biggest social media presences of any agent probably in the area. So, and you have fun with it too.
Yeah.
So sort of tell me about your journey on social media, because obviously I know you like TikTok,
mm-hmm.
and your son's big on TikTok. So, but that's fairly new. So where did you start and how did you evolve?
Okay, so like I said earlier, when before social media, I was doing a lot of just print ads and tried to do maybe just funny memes, or if something was popular, I would try to apply that to real estate. So I would do more print. Then as soon as Facebook came around, which I believe was in 2007, I hopped on Facebook, which was at the time kind of more college oriented, and I was doing I remember having a flip camera, and I was doing little videos at my listings. It's been a long time, but I was doing stuff that people were like, what the heck are you doing?
Right.
This is Facebook. This is not for real estate. And agents were literally like kind of laughing and snickering behind my back. It's fine. Who's laughing now? But anyway, so they kind of gave me a hard time for that. And I think a lot of people feel that way, that we're a little too visible, but it's really helped us in our business. And so I would say Facebook is probably my number one. Instagram, TikTok, every once in a while I'll do a real estate video. I'll find something, I'll do that. LinkedIn, Twitter. At one time I was very, very active on Twitter, not so much anymore. What else right now? Clubhouse. I love Clubhouse.
Oh yeah. Let's talk about Clubhouse. What are your experiences? Because I know Malia is super into it, and she says that it's like the new thing for real estate.
I love Clubhouse because they have all these forums that you can learn about anything, whatever you want. If you want to learn about knitting, you can go and learn everything you want about knitting, or database building, or open houses, or goals, or Bitcoin.
Okay, yeah.
So, just whatever you want to learn on, just hop on, hop out. You can be a speaker. Sometimes I speak in a room, or I'm on a panel and they have me talk.
Do you feel like it's more networking or lead generation?
It's probably at this point more networking, because I don't know if the general public is quite caught on. So when I hop in these real estate rooms, it's all realtors. And then I actually just referred an agent, a big buyer. She's like, this is my first Clubhouse referral. So,
okay, yeah. So, how'd you get your Clubhouse invite? Who invited you?
An agent, a real estate agent in New York.
Oh, okay.
Nikki Beauchamp, she's a friend of mine. So she sent me an invite, and then occasionally when I'll talk to people, if I think they're going to use it, I'll send them an invite. So they have to have an iPhone right now.
How many invites do you get?
Well, depending on I think you originally get 2, and then if you're active on the platform and you're engaging in rooms and talking and asking questions, then you'll get more and more invites. So right now I have like 7 invites. So if you want one, I'll do it.
Okay. So what's the biggest thing that you think you've taken away from being active on Clubhouse?
I mean, I've heard some tips that some agents are doing, and I'm like, wow, that's something to do differently. Maybe don't ask me what it was, but I can think of at the time, I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. So just little tips and tricks that agents are doing usually with multiple offer situations, but in escalation clauses, because that's new that we hadn't used in the past. So I need to learn more about that. So I'm constantly learning.
So what piece of advice can you give people who maybe want to be more present on social media, but maybe, let's say, have a little bit of fear around it?
Well, I mean, I still have fear. I got nervous about the interview today. Nobody likes to talk on camera. And I think and if you look back at my early videos, I'm sure they were horrible. So I think my advice would be just to start. And your first video is probably going to be awful. But nobody else is doing videos, so they can't, who are they to critique? You know, like
Sure.
you have to get outside of your comfort zone a little bit and just do it, you know?
How often do you watch your videos? Do you just do like one take and watch it back, or you just do one take and say post it and never look at it?
No, we definitely, it takes a long time. When Rick and I are doing a video for listing, we'll, you know, it'll take a while.
Okay.
I'm not that fluid.
Okay.
Michael Prather's fluid.
Yeah, he's a one take.
He's a
genius,
one
yeah, for sure.
take.
Don't ask me to do it the same twice.
No, we already
I'm
know.
not like that. I'm not as fluid as Michael.
So do you feel like you've gotten business from your social media?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So that would count as a lead generation method.
Yeah, I think social media.
Do you
is
think
great.
that social media is probably the way that you attract new clients? Okay. So your team is called Team Panel, and it's you and your husband.
Yes.
How did you, obviously that's your name, but how did you decide that you were going to brand, and, you know, what was your value proposition going to be for your business?
Rick was in the swimwear business. So a lot of people are, you know, blank team or the Prather team, the engine team. Well, Rick felt like team was more for like it sounded like a swim team.
Oh, okay.
Instead of ending it with team. And there was a Speedo suit called Team Panel or something. I don't know. You have to ask him about it. But it all kind of had to do with swimming, a little bit related.
Okay.
So that's how we chose Team Panel instead of Panel Team.
Do you guys still have Panel Swim Shop or no?
We sold that right
Okay.
about the time. That's what enabled him to get into real estate, because he was so consumed with sewing swimsuits and swim meets and all that. And he wanted to slow down a little bit. Didn't really slow down getting into the business, but anyway, he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to be attached to a retail store anymore. So we sold that, and then he came over.
Okay. So,
I didn't see all these people. Hey, Joe. Joe was a client of mine. I
Oh,
sold
yeah.
their house. Yes, Joe Dahlhair.
so how, you said you travel a lot. How do you maintain work-life balance?
So like I said, just have my phone, and I've lost listings before when I go out of town, or I've lost a buyer. I mean, I remember being at a swim meet with my kids, and when my kids were home, they took precedence. And I was at a swim meet in Indiana, I'll never forget it. And I can't remember what day it was. It was a Saturday, and we were there for Saturday and Sunday in Indy at the swim meet. And the person called on Saturday. They didn't want to list their house they didn't want to meet till Monday, but I said I was at a swim meet, but I'd be happy to meet with them Monday. And they didn't think that was good enough. Like, they were like, well, can you come over this weekend? I said, well, I can't, but like, they were already doing stuff. Like, they weren't ready. They were painting and right. You know, who cares if we meet Monday? And then I think I called them later that day and said, well, I worked it out. You know, I can be there at 8 o'clock Monday morning. And they're like, no, we've already gone with somebody. So the general public really wants, if they want it right then, they want it right then. So there's going to be listings that I'm going to lose because I'm out of town, but thankfully, a lot of my people, like I said, most of my business has been previous clients. They're going to wait until I get back, or I get another agent to go and, you know, get the paperwork for me or take pictures and be my my help while I'm out of town, and then I'm with them the minute I get back, you know.
Okay.
So I think I just be accessible while you're traveling and not turn the phone off. There's been only one time, and we went to the Maldives, and there was no phone service anyway. So I told all my clients, I said, I'm gone. I'm literally gone. And I needed it because we were exhausted. It had been a really busy year for us. We had a lot of production. I said, I need a vacation where I'm literally turned off. But that is the only time I've ever turned that phone off in however long cell phones have been around, 15, 20 years.
So it kind of sounds like you travel a lot, but you work even when you travel. So you're not really on vacation. It's just
I'm on the beach, on my phone or the computer. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, you know, you've been in the business for a long time.
27 years.
So how do you continue to push yourself, grow yourself? And, you know, I think that we can always still be building our knowledge capital, right? So like, what do you do to sort of educate yourself and stay at the top for your clients?
Okay, well, I take continuing ed.
Okay.
I read some of the trade publications. I listen to Clubhouse. I listen to podcasts.
What podcasts do you like?
I like Massive Agent podcast. Dustin Brown's a friend of mine, so I'll listen to Massive Agent where he interviews other top producing agents. So
Okay.
It's called Massive Agent podcast.
Okay, I'll have to listen so that I can get better at my interviewing skills.
He's an agent in Utah.
Okay. So where do you see your business going over the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, there's been so much change with all these, internet businesses. I do feel like we're still going to be around. I think that we're going to have to adapt, and we're adapting every day. But when people say, oh, well, you don't need a real estate agent, you still really do. And there's so much, selling a house is the easy part. Holding the deal together is the hard part. And I think that's where probably my strong suit is getting the inspectors in there. Once we have the inspection, then getting all the workers and all the quotes and holding the deal together after the inspection, because that's where a lot of deals go south, is getting through that inspection. So I think just hold it. What was the question?
Where do you see your business going over the next 5 to 10 years?
Oh, where my business going 5 to 10 years? I think that I plan on doing it. How old am I? 51. I'll probably retire when I'm 70. So
Okay.
Another 20 years ahead of me. And my daughter has expressed some interest in being in real estate, and Parker has expressed some interest. So we may be team panel the whole family.
That's awesome. So your son lives in California.
He lives in California, and I think he's going to get licensed in California.
Oh, well, that'll be exciting.
So
you can have your brand all over the place.
We could.
Does your daughter live here?
She is in college right now, but she's always said she wants to be a real estate agent. So if we have 4 of us, then hopefully that would be great. Then she, as we start to get older and slow down, she can take over where we left off. So That's what I see. Hopefully our business is having the whole family involved in the next, maybe in the next 5 years.
So, but you don't want to sort of expand the team beyond family?
No.
Okay.
We don't have any interest in that. And if our kids weren't going to do it, we still just want to be the 2 of us, because we feel like we feel like we can get better service, just the 2 of us. But again, that's not faulting anyone that has 20 agents that help. It's not our thing.
So you said that most of your business comes from sphere of influence, and you said that you keep in touch with your clients. Sort of, how else do you stay top of mind with them? And I mean, I guess what I'm asking is, you seem pretty social.
Oh yeah, we go out all the time. I mean, we eat out almost every single night. So I see a lot of people that way. Even during COVID, we did eat out a lot. So I guess just being out was that COVID?
She loves her sparkling water.
Being out in the public and trying to, we were out all over town and still passing out cards. I think passing out your card is key. I mean, I've been doing that for years and years. I got my husband off giving him my card. Okay,
so I have 2. That's cool. Really?
Yeah.
So I have 2 questions about things that, one is your commercial where you were Marilyn Monroe.
Oh, yes.
So did you do that to build your business, or did you do that because they were your?
No, he was a client of mine. And
Okay.
He just said, will you do this? I've got an idea. I said, yeah, I'll do it. So yeah, those commercials really did help.
Okay.
Get me out there a lot. I didn't realize it would help my business, but actually it has. So it helped both of our businesses.
I think that was probably the first time that I made the connection sort of who you were. And also seeing the Tesla, because you were one of the first people to have one.
I did love my Tesla, but for a real estate agent, it wasn't really practical, because if I had to go show property in for sales and somebody wanted to go to Hamburg and maybe out to Nicholasville, I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't charge. So that was really the only reason I gave up that car, because I did love it.
So the commercial, and then also let's talk about, because I've already had lots of people ask, and you mentioned it earlier, let's talk about Bitcoin and you trying to sell the property for Bitcoin. So how did that start? Okay. What does it mean?
Okay. So Rick and I got involved in cryptocurrency, which there are several different coins that compose crypto. Bitcoin is the Mac Daddy. Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency, which it's not something you can hold in your hand. Because at first, when I was looking through old messages, I messaged some Bitcoin expert. I'm like, Joel, I want a coin. He's like, Whitney, it's not a coin. You have to, it's not even, you can't feel it. And I'm no expert, but I'm learning every day. And I really do feel like this is the future of our country, of the world. And I do feel like real estate is going to be sold with Bitcoin a lot more. And I feel that our contracts are all going to be NFTs, which are called non-fungible tokens. And I'm learning a lot about that too. So we had been reading about property in California that sellers are asking Bitcoin for their property. And we're out there a lot. And I'm like, you know, we own this home on Lone Oak. We don't have a mortgage on it, which I think would complicate things a little bit.
Sure.
Because you'd still have to pay off the mortgage in cash. Mortgage companies aren't taking Bitcoin yet. And about 31 companies in the US have Bitcoin on their ledgers. So there's more and more companies are starting. What really prompted me to do it. And I was actually just interviewed by Yahoo News day before yesterday. So it's coming out today.
Exciting.
And they wanted to know too. So Parker's landlord in California is named Rick Caruso, and he's a billionaire. And he owns a bunch of property in California, including the Grove, the Americana, the Pacific Palisades Center there. And they sent us an email and said, oh, by the way, you can now pay your rent in Bitcoin. And I'm like, if Rick Caruso is taking Bitcoin and he's a billionaire and he knows something I don't, and he partnered with the Winklevoss twins who started Facebook.
Yep.
So I just was like, okay, somebody's going to sell their house for Bitcoin. Why can't it be us? So we marketed as that, hoping we really wanted Bitcoin over cash because Bitcoin is something you hold on to.
Right.
It's a long-term investment. I would not recommend, I guess some people do, you buy it and immediately sell it because you hear all these stories of like, they bought their Bitcoin for $400. Now one Bitcoin is over $50,000. So if you had sold your Bitcoin for $400 or bought a pizza for $8, that pizza is now worth $700-800. So we were hopeful we could get Bitcoin and then hold on to that and hold it for 10 years, literally. And my kids are now buying Bitcoin. I'm like, don't you sell it. Don't you sell it. Don't you dare sell it.
Okay.
And they're like, okay, Mom, okay. I said, I don't care if you're tempted. It's $1,000 more than it was. Don't sell it. So it's called HODL. It's a play on words because Elon Musk says he's going to HODL. He misspelled it, HODL. He was going to hold on to Bitcoin. Because Elon Musk is all into Bitcoin.
Well, he's into all crypto, right? Because he's very into Doge.
Yeah, she's very into Doge. So he's accepting Tesla. That was another thing. When I heard Elon was accepting Bitcoin and Doge for his Teslas, then I was like, we're going to get involved. So we'll see. But I just want to educate people on Bitcoin because I think the more education there is and the more people start to get interested in it, the higher the value is going to go.
I think that's interesting too, because we talk a lot about real estate trends and sort of how real estate trends from the coast inward. And I think probably that correlates in that, you know, they're already doing that in California and probably New York. We're just a little bit slower. We take about 2 years longer. So,
but if someone wanted to pay for a home in Bitcoin, at the closing, it could be transferred into cash through an app called BitPay. So if I had 10 Bitcoin and I wanted to buy that house, but the owner said, no, I'm not taking Bitcoin, I want cash, then you use the app called BitPay and they get their cash and I get to part with my Bitcoin.
Okay. Is there do you have to pay a fee to
Oh yeah, there's
Bitcoin?
a fee.
Yeah,
there's a fee. And you still have capital gains. I mean, we knew if we sold our home with Bitcoin that we would still pay capital gains on the gain in cash.
Right.
Okay. But there was a city, I can't remember what city is now taking their taxes in Bitcoin.
Wow.
I know.
That's awesome. So how do you do your research on that kind of stuff?
Just read articles and
Clubhouse
and podcast and YouTube.
Okay.
YouTube videos, there's a ton. I just research. Again, I'm no expert. I'm just learning like everybody else is.
Okay. So I think, is there anything else you want to touch on before we start questions?
No, I think you did very well. You're doing very good.
Thank you. Mr. Dollhair. So what I'm going to do, just because we have a lot of people on Zoom, So I'm going to repeat your question.
Don't we worry when it comes to Bitcoin fluctuation? It's a little more stable now. You know, I bought one Bitcoin for 70,000. Tomorrow it's 40,000.
It could, yes, it is
So-
very, very speculative. And there's probably not, I'm sorry.
No,
There's
it's okay.
probably not another investment out there that's any more speculative than Bitcoin.
So Joe Dahlhair just asked if she has concerns about the fluctuation in Bitcoin. I guess, what did you say, Joe? 70,000 one day and then 40,000 the next?
It could be, but we obviously feel very strongly about it, or we wouldn't have tried to get, 300 plus thousand and take that risk. Because yes, we could have sold the house for 300,000, and the very next day it could have gone down to 200,000. But again, we plan to hold our Bitcoin, not to sell it. So yes, that's a risk we take. But in 10 years, that coin could be worth a lot more than 300,000.
Well, I think what you said is interesting too, in that like you followed the billionaire in California.
Yeah.
I know Mark Cuban is huge
Yeah,
in Bitcoin, and then Elon Musk. So obviously those people are very savvy, and they definitely see trends, right?
And a lot smarter than I am.
I was gonna say,
like,
yes,
they're
absolutely.
doing that, they've got to know something. And again, they're speculating too. We're all speculating right now.
Okay. Does anybody else have a question? Tyler.
So I get off of a daily routine very easily, like anytime I travel.
Okay.
Do you have like a morning routine? What's your daily routine? Did you already answer that before I came in?
So Tyler wants to ask Whitney what her daily routine is, her morning routine.
Okay. So I don't sleep a lot. That's a question I get.
Okay.
I'm more of a night person, but I'm also wake up every morning at 7:30. So I just don't sleep a lot.
Okay.
It's never been that way.
How late do you work usually?
Well, last night I was working an offer till 11, and Rick was like, you know what, Whitney, just turn it off. Because there was not a multiple offer situation. And I asked
That's
him,
very lucky.
but if it had been a multiple, I would have gone on into 1 o'clock.
Sure.
But when you don't have a multiple offer and the agent's texting you a million questions at 11 o'clock, you've got to stop at some point. And I'm guilty of that. I just go, So Rick kind of grounds me a little bit and like, stop, just stop. So I think my morning routine is I get up, I turn on my Clubhouse and I listen to it as I'm getting ready.
Okay.
And then I just, we'll have my appointments. And again, I don't have all those systems in place where I call for sale by owners and all that, but I just kind of go about my day. I don't really have a set plan. I'm sorry, I don't.
No, it's okay. Do you have a goal though for appointments a day or anything? No? Okay.
That, just as a follow-up, that really helps.
Sorry.
That sounds similar to
Like I never sit down, like I never watch TV hardly. So I don't sit and watch soaps. I don't watch anything that's not gonna help me one way or another. Like maybe that's not good. Maybe I need a little more. At night on the weekends, we'll watch a funny movie or something, but I'm usually always listening to something that has related, not necessarily to real estate, anything.
What other business ventures do you have?
Oh gosh, let's see. What have we got going? We do have a lot going. I don't know. I'd have to think. I'm not ready for that question.
Okay.
We're always doing
Okay.
something.
Myrna had a question.
So you don't do open houses?
No. I stopped doing
Explain
those.
that to us.
So
Okay.
Myrna asked if Whitney does open houses.
So I remember catching flack from agents. Nowadays, it's easier to get away without doing open
Yeah.
houses due to COVID, because you can blame it on COVID. But I stopped doing open houses 10 years ago, a long time ago. And I will tell every client and every seller, I do not do open houses. And they're like, yay! So I find now I have had some agents go, you don't do open houses? Joe, do you remember me telling you I didn't do open houses?
We didn't have it.
We didn't have one, but we sold it pretty quickly. We didn't have to do it.
So you don't even like let other people host open
No.
houses for you. You
No,
just don't do them
none.
on your listings at
No,
all? That's
none.
interesting.
But I chose at 10 years ago when my kids were little, that was the reason, because we were always having baseball games or ballet or cheerleading or whatever. And I wanted to be with my kids on that Sunday, and it was selfish, maybe not. But my clients were fine with it, and if they weren't, then I didn't get that listing. And they can go and have somebody can sit there and do an open house every Sunday. It's just not the way I chose to do. I put my time and energy into social media instead of sitting in an open house every Sunday. I did 2 open houses every single Sunday for however long, 10 years.
Well, I mean, you said you've been in the business 27 years.
Yeah.
I'm sure you did a period of open houses when social media was not
Yes,
that was the only way to,
agents,
absolutely.
It's a wonderful way to pick up clients. A great way to pick up clients for new agents.
Well, I mean, that used to be a huge thing too, is you look through the newspaper for open houses and you go, that's just not really the way that it works anymore. So
Not faulting open houses at all.
I still know a lot of agents that put open house ads in the newspaper.
Really? And I know agents that get a lot of business from open houses, and I could probably do, 10 more units, maybe 20 more units a year if I did open houses. Just not for me.
The millennial side of the room is snickering at the ads in the paper.
No, I don't think that is.
Yes, you have a question, Brooke.
I do.
Okay.
So this is like an all-encompassing question. I'm sorry, because I just tapped in at like 10 minutes after you started talking.
Okay.
And while I was in the car on the way here, you were saying things in the car. I was like, oh my gosh, we are so similar.
Oh.
In the sense that I do not have any system.
Okay.
I kind of run around like a chicken with a head dog most days.
Okay.
And I'm just curious, so what was how many units did you do last year? I know you said you may not know this, but just last year in general, what was your volume and how many units did you do?
Okay. That I do know, I think. Did you want to repeat the question?
So Brooke said that she sees a lot of similarities between herself and Whitney, and she asked about volume and units for last year.
Okay, so my assistant keeps up with all that, and we were actually, I know this because we're changing our pay structure now, but I did not know it prior to yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Because at Keller we're doing something,
Yeah.
and I was like, well, what's the better plan or whatever. So I think we sold 65 units last year, which was more than we had sold years past. And this year we've already sold 19 from January to April as compared to 9 last year.
Wow.
So I think this year is going to be really good for everybody. But I think heretofore, before last year in COVID, I sold 50, usually average around 50 to 55 a year.
And you work in a pretty high
Our
price point.
average sale price is like 430,000.
Okay. That's
But
pretty
I sell
incredible.
all price
65
ranges.
houses.
Yeah, I sell all price ranges.
Sure.
I don't turn away listings. I was talking to another agent the other day. He's like, I'm not accepting any buyers under 200,000. Okay.
I'll take them.
Wow. I would too.
Got them right here. But I have another question to kind of tie to that. So I heard you say you had an assistant. So I guess one of the growing pains that I'm having right now is hiring that first hire and hiring an assistant, director of operations, because I have no systems to tell them. I want them to create these systems for me, which I know I'm looking for a unicorn probably. So I guess my biggest struggle right now is doing that. And I guess what kind of advice you have for your first hire, how you went about doing that.
So what advice do you have for your first hire, what to look for, and how to not get overwhelmed?
Okay, so I would think that maybe you go for an agent that isn't doing so much, or an agent that's struggling that at least knows a thing or two about real estate. Because I think you would spend a lot of your time teaching that admin. Are you looking for an admin?
Director of operations.
Director of operations. You almost have to have somebody that knows a thing or two about real estate, because you're going to spend so much time teaching them. Whereas I find that to be the case, I think, and probably the reason why I'm not hiring a lot of people underneath me is I'm going to spend so much time teaching them that I'm not getting to do what I love the most, and that's getting out and selling property, because I'm spending so much time with that. But my admin had been in a real estate company for years before, so she kind of already knew our contracts and all that. So I didn't have to spend that time, and she knew how I worked because she had been my admin at the other office. So I didn't have that learning phase. But I think talking to some agents that have made their first hire would probably be your better bet than asking me, because it's just not exactly the same.
Okay. Thank you.
Philip, did you have a question?
Yeah, how did you get your average price up to like 400 plus?
How did you narrow in your average price point?
Okay, I'll tell you that. So when I first got into real estate, when I was 24 years old, I started with my sphere, which was young, 24-year-olds. And they were buying around at that time in 1994 or 5, $80,000 homes, okay? So I started selling, I don't know what my average price point then, but maybe $100,000 homes, first time home buyers. And that's pretty much all I did because I didn't have anybody in the upper ranges then. So then those people I worked with, and they bought their next home at 5 years. And then I sold them their next home. And then I started selling their kids their homes. So it went up to, average price point of 80 to 100. Then the next few years, 200. So that's how just being in the business that long has gotten that price up. So it's not like I just set out to sell big homes. That's not the case at all. Because even to this day, I get so excited selling a first time home buyer $100,000 home. That's really why I'm doing this business, because I love fulfilling the American dream. That's why I love it. It's hard selling those $1 million homes because they're not always appreciated as much. They've
Sure.
done that. They've done this. It's no big deal. It's an asset to them.
You live in 40502, right?
No.
No? Where do you live?
I live in 40356.
Oh, okay.
Really?
I was gonna
I've
say-
always grown up in 40502. My
Okay, I was gonna
husband-
say that's probably because I know this is sort of your territory as far as listings go.
So I grew up in this area and lived in this area for a long time. But then when I married Rick, we moved to Jasmine.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yes.
Didn't know.
Yeah.
Joe's got another question.
I know you had a huge book of business. When you married Rick, he got into the business. All his contacts from all of his swim events and everything. What did that do for your combined book?
So what did bringing your husband into your partnership or a business partnership, how did that, because he had a retail shop.
Mhm.
So how did that help you grow?
Well, it really did help because he basically taught every kid in Lexington how to swim. He was a swim teacher and a swim coach and a lifeguard. So definitely a big percentage of our business, again, spheres, but we got a listing the other day where Rick had taught every single one of the sellers and their kids to swim.
Okay.
So I'd say it does account for a good bit of our business. And I think that was one of the reasons we got to know Joe and Sandy was through the swimming connections.
Oh, did your kids swim, Joe? Interesting. I grew up swimming too. So
Oh, you did?
that's what, yeah,
Here in
absolutely.
Lexington?
Uh-huh.
Where?
I swam for the Lexington White Dolphins.
Oh, so you went to Panel Swim?
Of course I did. It's the only place to buy a
See, that's
swimsuit.
great. That's great. So that's a good question, Joe, and I think it's definitely a factor in our business.
Yeah, my parents made me swim until I was a teenager, and
I bet Rick.
I did not like getting up at 4:30 in the morning, so I left that behind as soon as I could start making decisions for myself. So does anybody who's watching via Zoom have any questions? You can put them in the chat. Hi, Diana and Janie. Brenda. Michael's got a question.
Hey,
Michael, I
Whitney.
trust
Hey.
that you can speak loud enough.
Great job.
Oh my no, Michael.
I won't ask all my questions. I'm just taking notes as we talk.
Oh, I got many questions.
So when I'm sitting here listening to Whitney, and I want to give you guys also a plug for recruiting and getting people in your downline.
Yes.
I'm so proud to have Whitney in my downline. That she was a prime example, and I just heard this yesterday from an agent. No, I'm good. I'm good where I am. And it was, I'm good where I am. And it was, years of conversations and, fun little, lunch dates and, here's a book for the growth plan. And then all of a sudden, people aren't good. Things change.
Yeah, Michael was in the right place at the right time. Because when I met with him, I said, I'll never move. I'll never leave. I'll never leave. I'll never leave.
Well, if he has one thing, it's persistence. So that's for sure.
So when
You're in my downline.
I know. So something happened in my other office. There was an impetus, and I was like, Michael, I got $2 million listing sitting in the back. At that time, we had contracts in the car. You know, I guess Outlook hadn't quite caught on. And I said, I've got $2 million listings in my car. I'm leaving my company. Can you take me on tomorrow? He's like, we'll make it happen. He got there at 8 a.m. at the, wherever you were, Frankfurt or whatever.
So actually that reminded me when he asked that question. One of the very first things that I remember hearing about you when I started at Keller Williams. So did that do anything for you?
It did occasionally. And then one of the agents texted me and said, hey, they've drawn a mustache. Yeah, I don't think agents like me doing that.
Well, I think you were one of the first like individual agents probably to tap into that concept at KW. And still, I don't know that I've really heard of that many people that do it. So props to you.
I think one or two. Again, I don't keep up with all that.
Okay.
But yeah, I think I did.
So my question to that is,
Don't even know how many people I have in my downline.
well, no, I don't even know that on my own, and I don't even
Okay.
want to go look it up.
Yeah.
But what do you feel like has been the biggest change to you, your business, your mindset with coming to Keller Williams? What would you say the difference is from the traditional, broker business model to Keller Williams? What has that done for you?
I think what attracted me to Keller was just all the technology and the training that they have for new agents, which is key. And that's what I use when I recruit, is that we have so much training for new agents. And if you pass your test at APAS WICO, that in no way prepares you for what we're all encountering right now. So I think having the people that are open to teaching new agents, I think is probably what my biggest, that's what I really like about Keller.
That's awesome.
So we got a question in the chat. So,
It's a long question.
do you think people will make equity concessions in the future via Bitcoin? For example, if someone wants an inspection contingency for fixing the floor as a buyer, can you foresee a seller offering, say, 0.25 to 0.5 Bitcoins to the buyer in place of fixing this contingency?
Yeah, this is probably going to not sound, you're going to lose people here.
Okay, so the first player in the NFL history, a tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs, just announced that he's converting his entire 2021 salary to Bitcoins.
I read about all that, and he's making news. Maybe. I mean, that's going to lose the majority of the viewership there, because they're not going to understand what all that means. Which I do understand that, and maybe yes, maybe so, maybe so.
Compensation.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah, I mean, I'd take Bitcoin any day.
Would you be willing to concede the equity for Bitcoin because you see that you'll get a return on your investment?
I think the people that are into crypto, yes, they would. They would take it. I would love to sell another house with crypto, and I would take my commission in Bitcoin. That tells you anything about how strongly I feel about Bitcoin. I'd rather have Bitcoin.
Okay. Michael?
So my next question is that I think you exemplified what I've heard Gary Keller say a lot, that it's slowly, and then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
it's the hockey stick effect. And so what I want to make sure everybody understands is you've been at this for 27 years. And I think you're very, very unique in how you go about your business and your level of success, that I think sitting here listening, and I just know how hard you work, that you're constantly lead generating. You're just doing it in different
Whether
fashions.
I know it or not.
That's right, because you're a ball in motion, right? And so your growth plan, which is another piece that we described, is always happening too. You're constantly keeping up on what's going on, and so your lead generation to me is definitely database. It's Sphere, and you're just constantly in communication with people, which just stays top of mind. So, and you're out eating a lot.
Yeah.
Do you have any focus towards client events? I know I've been to, house parties at your place. That's a fabulous pad out in Jessamine County. you
Thank
know,
you.
food trucks. I mean, so
Oh,
I'm
cool.
thinking that that's kind of
That's
your
probably,
shtick.
I think it is. I think we do, prior to COVID, we did have a lot of parties. So I think that was, but we didn't slate it as a real estate event.
No,
We didn't do that.
but you view your clients as
As my
people
friends,
in your life.
yeah, a lot of my clients are some of my very closest friends. So, and to Michael's point, I didn't really get my business where it was on autopilot. It took 10 years. And before I hit that 10-year point, I was looking for other jobs. And I actually failed a pharmaceutical. I was thinking about doing pharmaceuticals. So I wasn't making any money. But again, this is before the internet. And
Right.
before, it was just hard. It was so hard. And my parents were still helping me when I was in business. So I was like, I'm just not making enough money to live. And I'm going to try to be a pharmaceutical rep. And I failed. And I'm so glad I failed the test because I stuck with real estate. And I remember the guy that was interviewing me, he's like, we really want you, but you failed the test. And I'm like, oh God, but it was like God's way of saying that's not
Yeah.
for you. So now I do feel like agents can certainly do a lot better than 10 years. But at the time, it took me 10 years before I really felt like I could stop doing open houses, you know? Like I had to really
What
work
happened there?
hard for 10 years and still wasn't making enough.
Well, I think that that's something that we teach here too, is that there's graduated levels of business. I mean, I don't know this, but I don't think Michael probably hosts that many open houses nowadays, although he loves talking to strangers. So maybe.
Yeah.
You know, as a team, we do a lot of
Sure.
new construction.
Yeah.
You know, I think, and it gets back to once again, you know, whatever level of business that you want to, you know, to have, you know, and at the end of the day, it's all about making a profit. And I would probably put Whitney's business, you know, Team Pannell's business up against even my team and a lot of other, you know, highly productive teams from a percent profit margin.
That's
That I watch your business and I feel like I got a pretty good grip on your business. Your expenses are low,
yeah.
so your profit is high. And at the end of the day, it's about profit.
Yeah.
And you're very passionate about what you're doing.
Yeah.
So it's also making the decision, are you going to be active in the business or do you want to, you know, working in the business versus on the business?
Yeah.
Do you track at all of like where the business is coming from to say, okay, you know, we're getting, you know, this from past clients, this is from Sphere, this is from Rick's Sphere from, you know, and what is your database you're using?
Michael, questions off.
Yeah. So what?
I don't do any of that,
Do you-
Michael. I don't do any of
Yes, but you did say you have a database, so you
I
just do Excel
that.
command.
Stephanie does all that stuff. My
Okay.
assistant does all that. I haven't looked at my database in forever.
Okay.
She just, if I'll say send something, she sends it. But I don't track all that.
Well,
Maybe I
sometimes
should.
sometimes I'm superstitious, so sometimes, and if something's working for you,
Yeah,
you don't want to disrupt.
exactly.
So
yeah.
if you feel like you've been successful not tapping into that, I think.
I mean, I could probably do a lot more business if I used Michael Prather's systems or Keller's systems. I might, but I'm as busy as I can be. I don't want.
I've
to
got
be
another
so much
book. I've got another book that I'm going to gift Whitney in due time that I want you to read.
Okay.
It's called The Golden Handoff,
Okay.
and I'll leave it at that. So there's
There
the
you go.
plug for that. And then we got to make sure we plug our next guest next month because you need to meet and talk to Eric Forney, who is a big Bitcoin guy.
Oh.
So, okay. So next month, Meet Omega in May is going to be here at Chevy Chase again, and we're going to be talking with Eric Forney, who is a top real estate agent in the Ohio Valley region.
Oh.
He's going to be our first outside Lexington guest.
Okay.
He's probably in his early 30s. I think he's only been in the business about 5 years, and I think last year he was number
He was
number
almost
3
$2 billion
in the
GCI.
region. Yeah, and brought in about $2 million in GCI. And actually, his first year in the business, he hit 800,000. So that'll be next month in May.
And I bet he uses a lot of systems, doesn't he?
Well, I do know that I haven't heard him speak for a while, so I can't attest to this. But I know that for quite some time, he had a team with the Ring where everybody's phone rings at one time and the first person to pick up gets the lead. I don't remember what that's
That
called.
makes me so
Yeah, that's
Ring
stressful.
Central.
Okay, so we have another question in the chat. Okay, so this is gonna be the last question, is what I was gonna ask you anyway, which is, what are the top 3 pieces of advice that you can give to people who are just starting off in the business?
Call people right away.
Okay, call people
Because
right away.
If you don't, they're gonna go to the next agent.
Uh-huh.
So be accessible. I think number 1. Let's see. This wasn't on your list of questions. Top 3 advice. Oh my gosh. Be accessible. Build a database. Yes, build a database. Build a database is very good, and work your database.
Uh-huh.
So when you start, you've got to keep track, because you probably, the people before the internet, I lost track of a lot of those that I sold early on. So with the internet, and Keller has those systems, you can.
You already said number 3, you just don't remember.
What?
Training.
Oh, training.
When
That's
you're
number
new to
3.
the business, the best thing you can do is educate yourself. And that's
Okay.
exactly why we do what we're doing right now, is so that we can learn from each other, right?
Yes,
So,
that's good. And go, now that COVID's coming to an end, go to the, any workshops or real estate national seminars. I did a lot of that too, that weren't always associated with Keller. I went to Lab Coat Agents. They had a thing.
so would you be willing, I'm putting you on the spot, you might be mad at me.
What?
Would you be willing to give away a Clubhouse invite to someone who is really dedicated to learning more about real estate?
Yeah, I'll give away 2.
Okay,
But
so
they just have an iPhone. You have
to have an iPhone. Does anybody, we have 2, Joe, I don't know if Clubhouse is gonna be your thing, bro. Tyler laughed. Does anybody on the chat want a Clubhouse? Philip wants one, all
Okay,
right.
so just text me or.
We've got one more.
Joe, if you want an invite, I'll get you one. Does Joe
I've got
want
some
an
too.
invite?
You have an invite to Clubhouse? I didn't know.
I have 2 or 3.
Okay. All right. Well, if anybody wants a Clubhouse invite, we've got Whitney, Brooke, and Myrna. So, all right. And I know that Malia loves Clubhouse too. So we'll have another. We might do a Clubhouse
There's David
panel.
Humes with magnets. He's got his magnets.
Oh,
That's
cool.
funny. Magnets work.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Thank you, Whitney, for
Thank you.
joining us. It was
Thank
fun.
you.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a great interview.
That
You
was
did a
fantastic.
great